Good day and welcome to the Stevia Corporation Investor Update Conference Call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Ken McCora with Stevia Corporation. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the Stevia Corp Investor Update Conference Call. We would like to take this opportunity to welcome all our shareholders. And to all other interested parties, we hope you find this call interesting and informative. With us today from management is George Blankenbaker, President of Stevia Corp. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that today's webcast and call will be archived on the company's website at www.steviacorp.com. Hopefully, everyone saw the press release we issued on January 26, 2015. In that press release, it encouraged shareholders to email questions to questions@steviacorp.com. That email will continue to be open to receive questions for the duration of today's call. Once again, the email address is questions@steviacorp.com. Before Mr. Blankenbaker provides the current update, I also need to provide the following notice regarding forward-looking statements. Portions of today's call will contain forward-looking statements as defined by federal law, including the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Statements made during this call, which are not purely historical, are forward-looking statements and include any statements regarding beliefs, plans, expectations, or intentions regarding the future. Actual results could differ from those projected in any forward-looking statements due to numerous factors. Such factors include, among others, the inherent uncertainties associated with new projects and development stage companies. These forward-looking statements are made as of the date of this call, and the company assumes no obligation to update the forward-looking statements or to update the reasons why actual results could differ from those projected in the forward-looking statements. Although the company believes that any beliefs, plans, expectations, and intentions contained in this call are reasonable, there can be no assurance that any such beliefs, plans, expectations, or intentions will prove to be accurate. Investors should consult all the information contained in this call and should also refer to the risk factors disclosure outlined in our annual report on Form 10-K for the most recent fiscal year, our quarterly reports on Form 10-Q, and other periodic reports filed from time to time with the Securities and Exchange Commission, all of which could have a material impact on our financial performance and prospects. This presentation shall not constitute an offer to sell, or the solicitation of an offer to sell, or the solicitation of an offer to buy any securities of the company, nor shall there be any sale of securities in any jurisdiction in which such offer, solicitation, or sale would be unlawful prior to registration or qualification under the securities laws of any such jurisdiction. This is presented as a source of information and not an investment recommendation. And with that introduction, I'd now like to turn the call over to Mr. George Blankenbaker, President of Stevia Corp. Go ahead, please, sir.
Well, thank you, Ken, and welcome to all of our shareholders. It's my goal for this call to be informative and to answer as many questions as we can in the time allotted. I am going to start by providing an overview of where the company has been, where it is now, and where we see it going over the next year. After my overview, James DeRosa will read your questions, and I'll be responding to them. I think it's important for everyone to first understand the history of the company and how that ties into our current direction going forward. I lived in Asia 14 years, and in 2002 began working with the Food Veterinary Authority of Singapore to provide strategically important food supplies to Singapore, consisting of both agriculture as well as aquaculture operations. In 2008, certain stevia extracts achieved the GRAS status, which is generally recognized as safe, by the U.S., and I was approached to grow stevia for Pure Circle, who is the exclusive supplier to PepsiCo. In 2011, we undertook a reverse merger into a U.S. public shell company, placing the stevia assets into the public company in return for shares and renamed it Stevia Corp. Although the headquarters headquarters was in the U.S., the operations remained in Asia. Now, to keep overhead low, Stevia Corp located the corporate headquarters in an office in Indianapolis, where I own the office property, and Stevia Corp is charged a flat rate of $500 per month for the office space, and that includes all facilities. And this amount of $500 was accrued until December 31, 2013, when I exchanged it for shares and with subsequent billings also being accrued. Also during that period, I had financially supported the company with nearly $1 million of accounts owing to me or affiliated companies, which monies were also converted into shares. I have also never received any cash compensation from the company for my executive services as president or director, and my only form of compensation has been shares. So it's important to know that as the largest shareholder with a substantial investment into the company, I am very much aligned with the shareholders when it comes to maximizing shareholder value and limiting unnecessary dilution. Now, for the Asia operations, Stevia Corp leveraged the infrastructure that has been built since I first moved there in 1989 and has again incurred minimal expenses for the administrative and office overhead. Our focus has been on using the available cash to grow the business and achieve our growth targets. It's important to note that Stevia's DNA is that of a farm management company, and our initial focus was on the agronomics of the stevia plant, from plant breeding to post-harvest techniques, which includes the extraction technologies that are used to capture the high-value compounds produced by any plant and making use of those compounds in value-added products. That has been the foundation of our business plan, and that focus has not changed. The company's first product was stevia leaf, and while growing leaf is important, it still remains a commodity product, and our focus has been to create value-added products from the extracts. Now, most people think of stevia only as a sweetener. They don't realize it is a medicinal herb and has been used as a medicinal herb in South America for centuries, where it is native, and that it also is classified as a medicinal herb in China, where most of the commercial stevia is currently grown. There have been many research studies done in Japan, Chinese, Korean institutes confirming stevia's health properties for chickens, pigs, and cows, as well as fertilizer for plants. In July 2012, we obtained the rights to product formulations that combine stevia extracts with an existing probiotic and enzyme product line, which was produced by our technology partner, Technu Biotechnology. We then obtained various government approvals so that we could carry out tests for agriculture and aquaculture use and determine that aquaculture would provide the greatest economic value. Stevia has the additional advantage of being a feed attractant for the fish, and internal tests indicated that we could achieve higher survivability, faster growth, lower food conversion ratio, and higher yield in a shorter period, resulting in an economic advantage after you take into account the additional cost of the feed additives. We are now in the process of commercializing our stevia feed formulations and believe this is the area we will maximize shareholder value from the stevia production. We are approaching hemp in a similar manner. The seeds and fibers are important commodities, but we believe the greatest long-term value lies with the cannabinoids. And just like stevia, we intend to use our core competencies to identify the compounds we need the plant to produce, breed the plants for that purpose, extract the compounds, and apply them to a value-added product. The only issue with this approach is that it is not yet legal for a U.S. company to grow hemp, so we are first focusing on the IP related to the commercialization of the cannabinoids and have so far filed 4 provisional patents. But while we believe the long-term shareholder value will be created from commercializing various plant extracts and related IP, we cannot neglect the core business, which is farm management. We currently manage farms in Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and China, with our administrative office centered in Singapore. At farm management level, we grow a variety of crops ranging from stevia to chili, and we have successfully met our benchmark goals each year, starting from test fields in 2012 to over 1,000 tons in 2013, over 2,000 tons in 2014, and are projecting over 3,000 tons in 2015. We've built credibility in the region and are now being approached by groups in the Philippines, Laos, Cambodia, international NGOs, and others to help manage their operations. Moving forward, our focus will be less on expanding our own acreage, which is capital intensive, and more on supporting third-party operations and downstream value-add opportunities. As part of the downstream approach, we are currently in discussions with one of our customers to establish a joint factory in Vietnam to process dehydrated vegetables to supply one of the largest food conglomerates in Korea. The dehydrated vegetables include stevia as well as other vegetables that are used as a seasoning for products such as ramen noodles. Because costs are increasing in China, they are moving their operation to Vietnam this year, and they want to partner with an established company. We are also working with our agriculture advisor, Andrew Kalin, to establish commercial production of seafood in South America this year, utilizing our protocol to supply major chains such as the Darden Restaurants Group, Red Lobster, and major buyers in Europe. It is important that I emphasize that there is a high risk that these opportunities won't materialize, and as a development company, there will be many things that we will aim for and fail to reach. However, I also believe it is important that the shareholders understand the types of opportunities that management is evaluating and why management believes it is important that the company increase its authorized shares such that management has the flexibility to consider such opportunities and propose a structure that is most favorable to the company and maximize shareholder value. I believe most of you are aware that the company filed a Schedule 14A proxy statement with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on January 21st, 2015, for a special meeting of stockholders to be held at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 9th, 2015, at our corporate headquarters to vote on increasing the authorized number of shares of common stock available for issuance from 250 million shares to 750 million shares. This brings up two questions. Why does management believe it is in the best interest of the company to increase the authorized shares? And why increase by so much? As of January 2nd, 2015, there were 198,239,385 shares of common stock issued and outstanding. Based on current financings as filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the company is required to reserve shares for potential future conversions, and the total issued shares plus required reserve shares exceeds the current authorized shares. But keep in mind that the amount of shares the company is required to reserve is well more than the actual shares that would be issued if the conversion was done at the current market prices. The excess shares the company is required to reserve is to protect the investor in case of future falling share prices. But why increase the authorized shares by so much? Having authorized shares doesn't necessarily mean that the company will issue the shares, and it doesn't cost more to authorize 750 million than 500 million shares. But it does cost a substantial amount of time and money each time that the company needs to file a proxy statement. Management believes it is better to have and not need than to need and not have. And this will provide the greatest flexibility to consider future potential business opportunities and propose a structure that is most favorable to the company. Overall, we continue to grow our core business as we focus on commercializing our IP, and I believe the market will be pleased with our developments in 2015. At this point, I would like to open it up to email questions and have James DeRosa read the questions, and I will respond.
Thank you, George, for that overview. We had many questions that came in, and most focused on a few subjects. Therefore, what I did was condense the amount of questions into a few main themes so that these questions don't become repetitive. Hopefully, with this approach, we'll be able to answer most of the questions that came in since Monday. The first question is asking you to talk about how we entered the hemp and cannabis space.
Sure. Our entry into the hemp and cannabis space was no different than the opportunity that we pursued in the stevia market. In fact, it's almost exactly the same business plan. However, we believe the hemp and cannabis space can be much larger. I mention this because there seems to be a misconception among investors that our business has changed, but that's not the case. In fact, if you look at it, we are one of the few public companies in the hemp cannabis space in which our entry was a natural extension of our existing business and core competencies. We didn't come from the mining space or the high-tech space. Rather, we were already in the farm management space, focused on breeding plants to produce specific compounds, extracting them for commercial purposes. And the foundation of the hemp and cannabis industries is derived from a plant that's like stevia. And they both produce medicinal compounds. Now, we're pursuing the hemp and cannabis space in the United States because the market is opening up through legislation similar to what happened to stevia's GRAS status in 2008. In fact, in 2012, I began to really look hard at this market as the momentum of legislation in the United States to legalize both industrial hemp and the medical cannabis began to take force. The legislation regarding the importation of industrial hemp-derived products was very clear. Hemp-derived products that contain less than 0.3% THC are legal to import into the United States. And the fact is, industrial hemp was the most important non-food crop in the early history of the United States, and its diverse uses made it a required crop of farmers in the country's existence at the time of the country's founding. Now, our initial interest in the industrial hemp was to focus on the health benefits of the seeds, their oil and protein, and capitalize on the healthy lifestyle movement of the U.S. similar to stevia. But as we've studied all the potential uses of the hemp byproducts, including the cannabinoids, we realized that this was a much larger opportunity. Now, one of the questions that comes up is, what is our goal as far as what is going to be our participation in the hemp industry? Are we just going to farm it? Are we going to create products, etc.? We are interested in doing the entire supply chain. As I mentioned earlier, currently, it's not legal to grow hemp. However, we're positioning ourselves so that we can do that. So, for instance, right now, I'm on the board of directors of the Indiana Hemp Industries Association. We're working very closely with the state seed commissioner as well as Purdue University. We're targeting to do the initial pilot projects early next year for the spring. We are doing quite a bit of work working with politicians, etc., both at the local as well as federal level. And we also help set up the Ohio Hemp Industries Association. And we're looking at helping to set one up in Illinois as well. Now, if somebody were to ask me, where would hemp grow best? Basically, hemp grows very well wherever you see corn grow, which is basically the Midwest. So we're already geographically, we're smack dab and right in the middle of the best place. We've got one of the best universities, being Purdue University, to help us do the research and figure out what the economics are going to be going forward. Now, at the end of the day, we have to be careful about overestimating what it means to be growing something. And with that, I want to relate it back to stevia because really, like we said earlier, these are almost exact models. In the case of stevia, when we came into the market, Pure Circle was already established. They were already the exclusive supplier to Pure Circle. Cargill was working with Coke, and Cargill is the largest privately owned company in the world. And they were Cargill was also taking over the retail shelf market. So as we were looking at the stevia market, really, if we're going to go for the side of supplying the Pepsi type products, we're going to be farming a commodity. And when you're farming commodities, you don't get that big margin. And if you expand, each time we expand each year, it's capital intensive. And that's going to continue to put stress on the company, which is that dilutive situation that we all want to avoid. So what we've been focusing on is, within the stevia market, is how can we take our core competencies and create a higher value-added product? To the extent that once we've achieved our production base, we can focus on that higher value-added product, which is more IP and technology, and increase our sales in that area without needing the intensive capital, which would be diluted. Now, so as I mentioned earlier, in the case of stevia, we're focused on the IP to create a medicinal product, basically, which we're applying to the fish feed right now with probiotics and enzymes. But when we look at the hemp market, right now it's pretty much a greenfield. There is nobody really established as far as growing hemp here in the U.S. So we would potentially have the opportunity to be the Pure Circle of hemp, if you will. Now, is that going to be the best approach for us? We don't know yet. That's why we're working closely with Purdue. We're going to be part of the studies, but we're also going to be, and I'm positioning myself with the Indiana Hemp Industries Association to work with all the different producers and farmers, et cetera, so that we are in a position that if the opportunity exists, we will be on the ground growing hemp. On the other hand, we have opportunities to create retail products. Again, there's really nobody that commands overreaching market share in that area, because although hemp is growing rapidly, it hasn't gone mainstream yet. It's mostly in the Whole Foods and that very health-oriented end of the market. But as more people are becoming aware of it, we're seeing the trend where we're now starting to see it in some of the major supermarkets. But again, nobody really controls that space yet. So there are opportunities there. It still leaves the question, though, is that going to be our focus? We're going to have to evaluate those types of things as they avail themselves, because there's too many variables between here and there. What is going to be our cost of growing the hemp versus what are people going to be willing to pay for it? For instance, right now, one of the impediments of getting hemp into a lot of the commercial buyers into the, turning it into the ingredients is that at the moment the price of hemp, if you look at the protein, it is one of the highest or most expensive proteins. Although it's better quality, the price difference is still too much. we believe that once the U.S. is actually growing the hemp and we can increase the volume, that the overall price of hemp is going to come down, and it will compete against the soy protein and the pea protein and et cetera. But again, we right now cannot forecast what's going to happen. But we also know that there's the medicinal side of it. And that fits very well with our core competencies, having worked with stevia, because just like stevia, we look at that stevia plant, we say, what are the stevia glycosides that either create the sweetness or create the medicinal benefits for fish? And then we breed that plant in order to produce those compounds. In the case of stevia, it's stevia glycosides. In the case of hemp, we're doing the same thing. It has more than 85 different cannabinoids. We're looking at that and saying, okay, which one of those cannabinoids shows the greatest promise right now? We believe it's CBD. So we would be in a position, and that's why we're working closely with the research institutes, that once the legalization is open for commercial production in the U.S., we would be able to work at the ground level to produce high CBD producing hemp plants. And we can use our core competency to do the extraction of that. And when we get into that area, we think that is where the highest value is going to be. And I believe that there's no doubt in our minds right now that we will be focusing on the cannabinoids and the CBD. The other parts of the hemp, we're going to evaluate as they come, but the CBD, we are determined to go forward.
Thank you for that, George. We also have several questions asking about the Real Hemp store and its status. Maybe you can address some of that now.
All right. Now, the launch of the Real Hemp store, it is imminent, and we have several products we're planning to launch. I know it's frustrating. The marketplace has been expecting that to open, and we haven't had a lot of updates as it relates to the store. But what the issue was is we were not happy with the quality or the consistency of the products we initially intended to launch, and we basically felt it was going to be best to take our time and do it right. Now, that meant confirming an entirely new supply chain, changing some of our initial plans. But now, in addition to our own products, we're also vetting some other products that we believe meet the essential requirements of the Real Hemp brand, and we plan to roll out several product lines in 2015. Now, the hidden value in all of this is that once we create the U.S. brands, we believe the greatest potential market will be marketing the U.S. brands in China. And we can market it in China by leveraging our infrastructure and connections there. The Chinese market is heating up for U.S. brands, and our company is well placed to take advantage of that. Now, for the U.S. market, we intend to launch on the Amazon site. We have engaged a Midwest firm that is on Amazon's list of preferred providers. So, again, we're going through all logistical steps to make it happen, and we do expect people to be happy with the result. But it was a management decision on our part that we didn't want to rush to market and launch products that would make people question the quality of the brand. So we're really focused on launching quality products, and it is imminent. Now, in the meantime, we're continuing to work with and send samples to the commercial buyers. Now, confirming these commercial orders takes a while as the buyers confirm the specs they require, and again, they're planning their own launches. Now, so far the feedback has been positive as far as quality, etc. But like I said before, right now the hemp prices are a little bit expensive. So what they're doing, for the most part, the large, and I'm talking about the large producers of say, energy bars and things of those nature, what they have to do is they have to decide, are they going to substitute part of their other proteins or just a marginal amount, and then they have to go through all the flavorings and all of that. So it's going to take a while to start confirming the production orders in the near future. But we are talking to several companies. We're sending samples to them, and we are expecting these orders to start materializing here in over the next quarter. Again, the question comes up, is this going to be our focus? It's going to come down to economics. Our goal, as we're going forward, is to take our limited resources and focus on the areas where we can create the greatest value, and do that in a way going forward with the least dilution. And so all of those parameters have to be evaluated before we make the decisions. But one thing is for sure, we will be in a position to supply these companies. And what our goal is right now, confirm a customer base so that as the legalization landscape changes and as it's legal to grow, and we're working with Purdue, et cetera, and the farmers in Indiana and basically the Ohio Valley, that we already have a solid customer base in place if the potential arises that we can make good money farming the hemp. So then it's just a matter of contracting the farmers, and we already have the customers. So this will put us in the best position so that we can make those economic decisions when the times arise.
Okay. There are also several questions related to CBD and the provisional patent that the company has filed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. We believe that the cannabidiol, often referred to as CBD, is going to be one of the most important compounds in medicine for a long time. What I don't think people realize is that when we look back at the medical marijuana movement 10 years from now, we may actually refer to this period as a CBD movement. Why does medical marijuana work for so many illnesses? Well, initially, scientists thought that THC was primarily responsible for the benefits. But now, as most of us know on this call, now they're discovering the importance of CBD. And CBD can be extracted from the industrial hemp. So what we've done is so far this year, we've filed 4 CBD provisional patent applications. And within those applications, there are a total of 63 claims. Now, as we noted within our press release, and at the advice of our intellectual property attorney, we're not going to discuss any details about the claims, but the OTC drugs that are part of our patent filings are some of the largest selling drugs in the world. I'll just ask one question to the marketplace and let the financial markets decide what the answer is. If we can create a better acetaminophen or ibuprofen, how much money is that worth? We'll let the markets provide the answer. But the way we see it, if we want to be in the CBD business, there are essentially 3 ways we can approach the opportunity. 1, we could conduct clinical trials, but this would take considerable resources and time we don't have. 2, we could build a brand like some of the major drug companies, but again, this would take considerable resources we don't have. Number 3, we can secure IP, intellectual property. And we believe this is the smartest approach for us because the market will need to come through us if our formulations will do what we believe they will do, and we're addressing a very large market. So one of the questions that has come in, or several questions that came in, were, are we currently marketing now? Are we currently trying to commercialize it now? It's right now with a patent pending status. Yes, we're able to go to the market and start to commercialize our IP. Where we're at in that stage right now, as everyone knows, we've just recently filed. We're in discussions with various parties and evaluating what is going to be the best path forward. And it may be licensing, it may be creating a product, etc. It may be partnering with a pharmaceutical company. Again, we're in a few different discussions, and once we can determine those directions, we will be providing the press releases, etc., and keeping everybody up to date. So, the last thing I'll say on this is, for sure, this is where we see our biggest potential as far as having a breakout year.
As far as something else related to that question, there's a lot of questions about natural versus synthetic CBD and what our intentions are. I think we might need to make this our last question because we've actually gone over time, but I think we've got a lot of ground covered. Do you want to touch on the synthetic versus natural?
Right. Well, I'll keep it short. We believe there will be applications for both natural and synthetic CBD. We also believe that there are advantages and disadvantages of each depending on the application. So we're actually intending to work with both. And in addition, I know there's been some questions about the patent applications. Are they for synthetic? Are they for natural? Our patent applications do not limit us to one or the other. And we are including not just the CBD, we include other cannabinoids. So as far as where we're focusing on the whole CBD area, right now, if you look at the landscape of CBD and its use, again, its biggest hindrance is price. Pretty much the only people that are really consuming CBD are people that are self-medicating. They have a chronic pain or something that they need some type of relief. Now, what we believe the big market is would be the healthy lifestyle market. And these are people that are going to take supplements, et cetera, say fish oils and things like that, because they're looking at how to be healthier. And given all of the benefits of what CBD provides, we'd like to turn it into the next fish oil, if you will. But to do that, we've got to be able to bring the price down. Now, working with the current extraction technology and the current source of hemp or industrial hemp, it's an expensive ingredient. Through the synthetic process, we are able to bring the cost down. And we believe that as we're bringing this cost down, we are going to be able to capture a bigger market share. In addition, once we have captured that larger market share and we continue working, whether it be with the synthetics or the hemp, we are going to be able to continually bring the cost down. We already know that there's going to be economies of scale on the synthetic side. And then on the natural side, there are several companies that are making considerable gains in producing high CBD industrial hemp plants. Now, one of the questions came in regards to China. Are we growing hemp in China? Are we harvesting hemp in China, etc.? I think it's important to understand what the laws are. It's actually illegal for a U.S. company to grow hemp, even if it's overseas. So if we grow hemp in, say, China, we would have to do it through a company that we don't control. Now, when we first looked at China, and one of the issues that we had as far as bringing product into the U.S. is that a lot of the current areas growing in China actually have high heavy metal content. And the thing about hemp, it's like a sponge. In fact, it's a sponge for heavy metals, if you will. In fact, hemp is used to actually do reclamation and turn brown areas, areas that have a lot of toxicity, et cetera, around cities, and improve them. One of the pilot projects in Kentucky was exactly for that purpose, as an example. So one of the issues that China has is that a lot of their farmland is high in heavy metals. And right now, a lot of the farming is done by small operators. And so if we go in right now, it's very difficult to control that. What we're going to need to do is evaluate, does it make sense to relocate in a new area, say Inner Mongolia as an example, and do a large plantation? Some of the factors that we have to figure on this is, in the long run, we're expecting to have hemp growing here in the U.S. With the landscape changing as quickly as it is, the political landscape, the legal landscape, we're expecting that not to be in the too distant future. Now, if we are going to be investing a lot of money into China to develop a large plantation there, and the U.S. legalizes hemp, and there's a lot of hemp coming onto the market here in the U.S., the price of hemp or the cost of hemp is going to go down substantially. And where does that leave us in China to recoup our heavy capital investment? So what our goal is right now, let me back up. Our initial plan was to use the hemp in China and launch products here in the U.S., establish that customer base I talked about earlier, and eventually work with the Purdue universities, et cetera, and the local farmers, and use the local growing to supply the market that we captured using the China import. The issue we had was inconsistent quality, heavy metal content, etc. So that kind of blew the door off of that. So we had to come back and reassess how we wanted to approach it. And like we've said, our focus right now is to work with the local farmers planning to grow it, but to bring in existing product. Right now it's from Canada to establish our client base. There was also some questions about our CBD because our CBD and China. It is true. We were doing some extraction in China. We had the protocol to do it. But again, when it comes to commercializing that, China is a place where there are a lot of things that are done, but then there's what is legal. And we know that there's CBD coming out of China. However, it's not coming from the approved strains. And as a public company, we don't want to risk touching anything that may come back to haunt us. We want to be very much above board. So in the case of China, they have a few approved strains, government-approved strains, and in the case of the strains that are approved, what the situation is that they are all very, very low in CBD. And what had happened is that in the process of approving those, they had bred out the cannabinoids. Well, the way you get rid of THC, since the cannabinoids in general, they kind of relation to each other, the easiest way is just to breed out all the cannabinoids. So all of their approved strains are low in total cannabinoids. But now we're going back and saying, oh, but we want the CBD. So now they need to breed the CBD back into it while keeping the THC low. But that takes time. And you're talking, when you're doing that, you're talking several cycles and seasons. So as far as again, I'm referring to the legal strains in China. As far as working with those, it's going to be a couple years before they're going to get, well, probably even more than a couple years before it's going to get to a level where it would be economical for us to work with and do the extraction. As such, we've decided not to focus on the CBD in China, but then when we looked at what are the other options, we have the CBD that's already coming into the U.S. market. Again, it's expensive, but not only that, it's also inconsistent. Again, there's been write-ups about it. There's been cases where CBD has been coming to the market, and it is tested for heavy metals, for hexane, etc. And there have even been a few people that have had to go to the hospital to be treated. So again, this is an area where what we're attempting to do right now is use our core competency technology, if you will, by doing a synthetic CBD and bringing the cost down to a reasonable level, having a product we know is pure, there's no inconsistencies, etc. Use that to establish our initial market. Then as the legalization changes in the U.S. and we're able to grow our own hemp plants, then we can work with both the natural as well as the synthetic. As we said earlier, there's advantages for both. I know that there's been a lot of backlash from people as far as using synthetic, and you have to keep in mind where these people are coming from. I'm in agreement with their point of view. Generally speaking, a whole plant extract is always going to be more healthy, if you will, than taking any particular compound and reducing it to its pure state. I think most people are aware of the synergies that the cannabinoids have, or what they call the entourage effect, where when you combine different cannabinoids together, they create a synergistic effect and actually improve the outcome significantly. You have the terpenes and the flavonoids doing the same thing. So there are situations where, for sure, it's better to do the whole plant process. But then there's also situations where, especially for medical applications and things of that nature, that it needs to be very dosage controlled. They need to know exactly what they're putting into their product. They can't afford to have impurities, etc. In those situations, the synthetic formula is actually preferred. And as we know, a lot of our medical applications actually, at the end of the day, they discover a plant and they discover what its active ingredient is, and then they synthesize it. And that's used for even common things like vitamin C. Most of the vitamin C we buy on our shelf is synthetic. So while we want to provide the most healthy product, we have to keep in mind what are its applications. And in the case of the synthetic, we actually see, because of the way things are commercialized, we actually see more potential market at the moment for the synthetic side than we do for the natural extract. But we are going to work with both. And just confirming what I said earlier, we have confirmed our protocol to produce the synthetic, and we are producing our commercial batch right now. So we're going to be having a commercial supply of CBD, and we're going to be providing samples of it to several interested potential buyers that we've spoken to so far. And again, as we get results on this, we'll be keeping everybody informed. Now, it's going to be a little while. It's going to be a few weeks before we actually have the product here in the U.S. And then again, when these people test it, they're going to do their lab tests. They're going to go through a lot of protocols before they're ever going to give us a large commercial order. But it is a process that once done, if we pass all of the hurdles, we're going to have a significantly large market for us, and that includes the patents that we're working on as well. So with that, I guess before closing, I want to express my sincere thanks to all of the shareholders that have been supporters of Stevia Corp, and we are looking forward to a bright 2015.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the Stevia Corp Investor Update conference call. Remember that today's webcast and call will be archived on the company's website at www.steviacorp.com. For questions that we didn't have time to address today, we will consider including content in future press releases to cover those as well. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude today's conference. We thank you for your participation. 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 We thank you for your participation.